What's up, guys? As promised, today we got the LG V60 versus the new iPhone 16 Pro Max. So I wanted to do this comparison. We do this comparison almost every year now. And yeah, a lot of people are holding on to their V60s. They want to maybe switch to an iPhone 16 Pro Max, or you just want to see how your V60 compares to the newest phones. See if you're missing out on anything, which definitely I understand. So there's new stuff going on here, which we will talk about, but there is also quite a bit you're going to lose if you do decide to upgrade to a newer phone. So definitely there's pros and cons here. So let's start off with the hardware. Obviously, premium designs, glass and metal, IP68, dust and water resistant on both of these phones. And the V60, it has still a really good design for an older flagship. I do like it. I think it has aged well. The iPhone does have a matte finish on here, which doesn't pick up fingerprints, but the V60 has a glossy finish. It can pick up fingerprints, but I think the design still looks really nice, has a very classy look to it. And then also, what I found interesting is that even though the iPhone is a massive phone this year at 6.9, the V60 is still a bit taller than this phone as well. Now, hardware-wise, there is quite a few different things going on here. So what you will notice is that you have a 3.5mm headphone jack with a quad DAC. So I dropped that XM5 headphones video, or XM4s, and I love listening to audio on the V60 if you're really serious about audio quality. And obviously you don't have a headphone jack on the iPhone. You also have SD card support on the V60 as well. So those are two things that you'll be losing if you do decide to upgrade. Now, you also have dual screen case support with the V60 as well, so you can buy that dual screen attachment. The iPhone has something new here called the capture button. So you basically press this button and you can control the camera controls. And it really comes down to what you think about, you know, this. It really comes down to how much you use your cameras. I guess if you're in a, you know, you're really a professional, or you're trying to, I don't know, taking pictures and stuff like that. You take a lot of pictures, you might find that useful. The button placement to me is very awkward. I've said this in a lot of videos, but you know, it's not my favorite thing about the 16 Pro Max at all. Also, you do have an action button on here as well too, which is pretty much a universal button. You can assign anything here with this button here. But overall, really nice hardware on the iPhone. Also, the V60 does have a Google Assistant button as well too. Alright, so let's talk about the display upgrade here. So the iPhone has a very big display at 6.9 inches. It's LTPO Super Retina XDR OLED display. It's a 120Hz panel, Dolby Vision, 2000 nits peak brightness, 1320 by 2968 resolution at 460 for the PPI. Beautiful display here. You got the dynamic island on here as well. With the V60, it has a 6.8 inch display, and then this phone is also 1080p POLED HDR10 Plus, and then it's $395 for the PPI. You got the old school notch on here as well, and overall you can see just the slimmer bezels. It's a much more, I guess, modern looking display here. Now, the color wise, the V60 still looks great. Even for a 1080p panel, this still looks really nice and really sharp. So the biggest upgrade here is really going to be your max brightness outdoors, and then also just the overall aesthetics, right? Just the slimmer bezels and the 120 hertz. So overall, it's a pretty decent display upgrade. I'm not, I'm not mad at this. So if you are planning on upgrading, the biggest thing you'll really notice is the 120 hertz here for the most part. It's just, it is much smoother than a 60 hertz panel. Even though the V60 has a smooth 60 hertz panel, you will notice it. Let's talk about specs a little bit more here. So obviously the new Apple A18 Pro chipset, it really is a powerful chipset as far as benchmarks go, right? It's also, this model here is 256 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM. You're also supposed to have the Apple Intelligence on here that is, you know, currently not here. But that'll make a big difference. And then on the V60, we actually have the Snapdragon 865 chipset on here. And we also have, again, SD card support is on board, 128 gigs of internal storage, and this also has 8 gigs of RAM. So what's kind of funny here is that you would think that the V60 is a, you know, kind of a slower phone here, but it's really, really not, guys. It's pretty fast, right? The A65 is very fast. So a lot of people, you let the benchmarks kind of like, you know, hype you up, but the V60 is very efficient in almost everything it does. As far as the app loading, gaming, it's still a very smooth device. Like I said, the iPhone would be a little bit faster, like getting into games and stuff like that, but as you guys can see, it's really not, it's not what you think. So they're both very fast. Like I said, if the V60 had like 120 hertz, you really wouldn't notice too much of a difference. It would feel the same. But I would say the biggest difference here with speed is, again, the animations are smoother. All right, so let's talk about the gaming experience. So the iPhone is obviously going to be a much better gaming phone for, you know, competitive gamers, and they've got, you know, quote unquote console like kind of gaming with that Assassin's Creed and that Resident Evil. So it's a very powerful phone. I know it's kind of like, from what I've been seeing, it's kind of stripped back version, but it's still pretty impressive for the most part here. You got 120 frames on PUBG here. So definitely a much, you know, I would say a much better gaming experience for the competitive gamer. If you are more of a casual gamer, you really won't notice too much of a difference. The V60 is still very, very fast, being able to play at HDR Extreme. It really could play at 90 frames or 120 frames if it had the display. But it's still a very capable gaming phone. There's really nothing that I've played that it hasn't been able to play. Call of Duty, you know, stuff like that. It definitely is still pretty fast. And also, if you get the dual screen case, you can actually, you know, that'll enhance the gaming experience as well. You can actually use a PUBG map on the dual screen case itself. So I think that's pretty cool. And then also the benefit of being able to play a lot of games because you have expandable storage on here as well is also something to think about. But definitely a better gaming experience on the 16 Pro Max. Let's check out the speakers at max volume. Yeah, definitely better speakers on the 16 Pro Max. I think just overall louder. Let's turn the LG sound engine off and see what that does. Yeah, it's just overall just a louder, just beefier speaker. Yeah, so the 16 Pro Max has actually a very impressive speaker this year. Really, really nice sounding. All right, so let's talk about the biometrics. Obviously, we've seen Face ID 100,000 times. The only thing I don't like about the V60 is that you have a fingerprint scanner, which works fine. It's an optical one, so it's not the fastest, but they never gave us the option to have face unlock on this phone, which is crazy. So you don't have that option for face unlock, unfortunately. But yeah, overall the fingerprint scanner is fine, but I would say if I had to choose, I would probably say the face unlock is just, it seems a little bit faster than the optical one. All right, so most people are going to be upgrading for these new cameras on the 16 Pro Max. That's probably going to be the most exciting thing. So I'm going to show you guys some side-by-side stills and videos so you guys can kind of see what you're working with here. But let's talk about these specs. The iPhone 16 Pro Max has a 48 megapixel standard camera, 12 megapixel periscope telephoto with 5x optical, which goes all the way up to 25x zoom. And then you also have a 48 megapixel ultra wide. It can shoot in 4K, 120 frames actually. And then you also have a 12 megapixel selfie camera that can shoot in 4K as well, and that's 4K 60. So the V60 has a 64 megapixel standard lens with a 13 megapixel ultra wide with a 0.3 depth sensor, and then you also have 8K 30, and then you also have a 10 megapixel selfie camera that shoots in 4K 30. So check out these side-by-side stills and video. Let me know what you guys think. So the last thing here is actually going to be the battery life, guys. Battery life is pretty good on the 16 Pro Max, but the thing here is that the battery life on the V60 is not bad at all, actually. And it's actually, I have not replaced the battery in here, and it's still really good standby time and really good battery life. So I've never had an issue with the V60 as far as screen on time. It's just had always good battery life for me. But yeah, so battery life, I would say, I don't think it's that much of an upgrade, at least for me as a lighter user. They both really can get through the day just fine. They both have wireless charging as well too. You do have faster charging on the iPhone. Apparently it's 45 watts if you have the right charger for it. You get 25 watt wireless MagSafe charging on here as well. And yeah, so as far as the charging experience goes, yeah, you get to use the MagSafe stuff and stuff like that. So it really depends. But as far as the battery life goes, I think these are two fantastic phones when it comes to battery life, actually. So yeah, so I'm really curious to see what you guys think. Was this enough to make you upgrade to the 16 Pro Max? And remember, the Apple AI features are coming. I think that's like the biggest thing here is when Apple rolls out these AI features, which again, we have to see how useful they are. I think that's what a lot of people are kind of curious and excited about. If you are going to move to a newer phone, because, you know, obviously the older ones, the V60 is not going to have the AI stuff. So that's pretty much it. Be sure to let me know what you guys think.